It's time to talk the world's game from an American perspective. Presented by Three Lions Pub, you're listening to Two Up Front, where we focus on all things American soccer, from the NWSL, MLS, U.S. national teams, and all the way to the youth levels. Now in the studio, your hosts, Baxter Colburn and Simon Provan.
Welcome to the next edition of Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. I am Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Coming to you from the Attention Era Media Studios in a chilly downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Simon Provan, happy Wednesday to you, sir. How are you?
I'm good now, Baxter.
Good.
Just sat down here in the studio.
You literally have been inside the studio for about 35 seconds. Like right before I hit the theme, you walked through the door. But you have a lot of stuff going on right now.
A lot of stuff going on. Yeah, I'm directing a show right now at Wisconsin Lutheran College.
Ooh.
In which we're about to head into our tech rehearsals, which means very late nights.
Yep, very late nights, unfortunately, and just all the craziness that goes with putting on a full-scale production as well, too. Do you think, is directing harder than coaching? Yes. I feel like you've got more parts that have to line up than just putting 11 players on a field.
Right.
Not that it's not complicated to put 11 players on the field and be successful, but I feel like you have to worry about so many other things like hitting your cues and lights and
there's a lot more. We're telling a complete story here, so there's so many other elements that I have to be concerned with, and on top of that, with directing in a college. And this isn't a slant on the students. It's a little bit different than directing professionally. Directing professionally is more like coaching a game.
That's true, yeah.
Whereas, you got actors who are in there and they know what they're doing just about most of the time. Whereas when you're directing a college, it's still an extension of teaching. So you're still teaching while you're directing. So you're actually wearing two hats.
Kind of just all over the place.
Yeah.
You're like, let's just figure it out and see what happens. Well, either way, we're excited to have you here in the studio with us today, Simon, as we continue to roll along with the show.
Well, it's always great to be here, and of course, it's exciting to have you here as well,
Absolutely.
Baxter.
Glad to be here, definitely. Two great guests coming up on today's show. Goalkeeper for FC Kansas Ciy, Nicole Barnhart, will be here with us in our third segment. And then former NWSL player Rachel Wood will join us in our final segment to give us an update about what she's been doing with her life and possibly just chat about some of the other things going on in the women's soccer world as a whole. I know she's a very opinionated gal, a lot of fun to talk to for sure, but it'll be great to get Rachel back on the show as well, too. A quick reminder for you, of course, as well, since we don't have a consistent schedule for you at the exact moment, your best way to figure out what we are programming and what we're doing is to go to our website, twoupfrontsoccer.com. You can also find past episodes by going to Spreaker.com, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and the Sports Podcasting Network as well.
Yeah, check us out on Facebook as well. Just type in Two Up Front in that search bar. You'll find us, and do us a favor while you're there. Give us a like. Doesn't cost you anything, but maybe a split second of your time. You can also find us on Twitter at Two Up Front Soccer. Of course, he is at Baxter Colburn. I'm at Simon Provan.
All right, Simon Provan. Taking a look around the soccer world, I want to start in MLS with one of the conversations that has been happening with things that take place on the field, not with the players, but with instant replay. We've heard that Pro, the organization that signs all the referees, has hired Howard Webb to manage their video assistant referee operations.
Sure have, yeah.
Howard Webb, a longtime international ref, spent some time in the Premier League as well, too, over 25 years worth of reffing experience. I don't know a lot about what they're currently doing with the assistant referee operations, but I know that they're trying to get this video instant replay basically instilled into games.
Yeah, what they're doing is in the preseason, they're taking about 30 games to test out this system, and this is the part that I don't agree with. The first part of the regular season, they will be using what they're calling VAR, video assistant replay, but it's not actually going to be used in the games officially. It's not until after the All-Star game that they're actually going to implement this into the season. So I'm saying, hey, use it all season or don't use it all season.
So I guess I feel like soccer is one of those sports where I feel like it's a little harder to use instant replay on because unless you have, MLS doesn't have goal line technology yet.
Correct. It's only going to be for 4 different calls.
Okay.
I don't have it here in front of me, but if I remember off the top of my head, it is penalty kicks, it is red cards, It is misidentification, and then there's a fourth one in there, Baxter.
And I don't see it in front of me here. I'm looking as well, too, at least at the article about Howard Webb, and I don't see them talking about what it's going to be. But I guess that makes a lot of sense. It's not like, with
it's
basketball,
not going to be offside.
Or with NFL, or it's like, did he get both feet in, things like that.
Well, here's the thing that I've always said, especially on PKs. 9 times out of 10 when a PK is called, you've got players running up to the ref and arguing with him for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So there isn't going to be, to me, this doesn't change the game.
No,
you're just making sure you got the call
exactly
correctly.
So are coaches going to be able to throw a challenge flag to be like, I want to challenge that call?
Not yet.
Or is it just going to be the fact of somebody up in the booth is going to hit the ref in the earpiece there, basically be like, you should go take a look at that again and just double check, kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's from what I understand. That's what they're talking about doing. Look, I'm all for it. The game is a lot faster. The players are faster than what the game used to be 100 years ago.
True.
I know there's a lot of people who say part of the beauty of soccer is the human mistakes, but look, the game of soccer is scoring a goal when it gets down to it. It's a very simple game.
Yeah.
You score goals. If the ball crosses the line, that's also what it'll be. I think that's the fourth one, is to make sure the ball crosses the line.
Yeah. Hold the ball, hold the line kind of thing.
So look, here, it's very simple for me. If a goal is scored, it should be counted.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with going back and saying, guys, we called that one no goal, but it's actually a goal.
Yeah. How many times? I mean, I think one of the big examples in just international soccer before goal line technology, I think it was Steven Gerrard or somebody in an England game that scored he scored, but he didn't, because he hit the underside of the crossbar, bounced down what looked like on the line, even though you look at it, the whole ball was inside the goal and then bounced quickly back out.
Yeah.
And everybody thought, and the ref waved it off like, nope, no goal, even though it was everybody that saw the replay was like, that was clearly in.
I'm pretty darn sure that was the 2010 World Cup.
I think so,
and to add salt to the wound, I believe it was against Germany.
I think you're
those two are huge rivals. We could be wrong about that, Baxter, but that's what I remember.
I think that's what it was. Yeah, I could be wrong too, but that was just one example. I think that helped start the conversation in general about international soccer, saying we have to have some sort of goal line confirmation that this ball is actually going in, basically, instead of because not every shot is like, oh, you see the net bulge. It's like, okay, obviously that was a goal. It's like, was the goalkeeper there? Because the goalkeepers are getting even better nowadays.
Well, that's it too, right?
It's that game of split second, basically.
I do want to go back to Howard Webb being the head of the VAR in MLS. What's interesting is Manchester United doesn't play in MLS, so which team is Howard Webb going to add 7 minutes onto in his video replay assumptions?
And that's what I'm wondering, too. Who is the Manchester United of Major League Soccer? Is it the Galaxy?
I think you would have to say so at this point.
I feel like that makes the most sense, too. They've had the most British appeal, I feel like, across, since with Beckham and Gerrard and a couple others that have been there as well, too.
It's funny, when Howard Webb retired from the Premier League, there was all this stuff going on about, Manchester United announced the newest statue they're going to build in front of their stadium. Howard Webb.
They should. I think that would be funny. I mean, you can just honestly go for hours just looking at memes and videos and pictures of Howard Webb. If you just Google Howard Webb, there's so much that comes up from him. So a pretty funny moment, to say the least, about that. But we wish Howard Webb the best and hope that it does help make the league better.
Yeah, overall. Absolutely.
One other thing I was curious about is we are in our kick around, which is presented by Too Much Metal. You can go to toomuchmetal.com for rad t-shirts for rad people. One of the rad people in MLS is Dax McCarty. He's a little fired up, not in a good way, fired up about how the Red Bulls handled the trade from the Red Bulls to the Chicago Fire of him just 3 weeks ago. It feels like it's been a lot longer than that, but for those that don't know, Dax McCarty was traded for $140,000. $400,000 in general allocation money back on January 16th. He's now a member of the Chicago Fire, but he himself is saying that the organization, specifically Jesse Marsch, handled it wrong and handled it poorly and very unprofessionally, and he held no punches, basically, when talking to the media about it this last week.
Yeah, and actually, I think when I saw the headline, I was like, ooh, I hope Dax isn't also going to fall into that unclassy category. But you read his comments, and I think it's actually very balanced and
I agree,
and very even keel. He goes on to talk about he gets it that it's a business. It's just that he's been the captain for this team. Yeah. He's been there for 5.5 years. Him and Jesse Marsch have a great relationship, and the thing he was being very poignant about is that he believes that it was Jesse Marsch who executed this trade, and for Dax McCarty not to be known ahead of time, not to be known ahead of time that this was going to happen. He's with the national team. He's on his honeymoon, and he finds out, hey, guess what?
You've also been traded.
You've been traded.
Change of address forms. Good luck. You're already getting married, so you got to just kill all the birds with one stone, I guess. But yeah, some of the comments that Dax made, though, I thought this was a good one, talking about the Red Bulls organization. He said, this is a team that preaches togetherness and brotherhood and having each other's backs. Trust is a big word that they use. And he definitely reciprocated, saying, he's like, hey, I thought that if we trust everybody and we try to support each other, the least you guys could do with all that I've done for this organization is that you would at least give me a heads up. And
right.
he made it very clear. He's like, if I'd have been told this is for business reasons, we have to move you, he's been like, totally fine. But he's like, because of the semi-shadiness of this, where it's like, oh, boom, no warning, you're gone kind of thing, he gets a little more peeved by that, I guess.
Well, it's interesting, too, because he does go on to say how, because he really believes it was Jesse Marsch behind all of this, that Jesse Marsch's comments about this really confuse him, because Marsch is saying, maybe our club could have handled this better, and when I look back, certainly could have done things better. Apparently, Marsch and McCarty did have a conversation after the trade happened, and McCarty saying he told him to his face that you don't treat people like this. You got to remember that, yes, it's a business, but we're also human beings. So, to be clear, Dax is not upset that he got traded.
Yeah.
It's the way that it was handled. That's all.
Exactly. All right. Well, we are going to run to our first break. When we come back, we'll dive into the NWSL. Chicago got a new logo. I think that's pretty slick looking, honestly. The Canadian national team wins a 3-2 game in that bronze medal celebration match where we talked to Melissa Tancredi last week. We'll look at that and look at some other fun things as well, too, in regards to the NWSL. You're listening to Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions.
Three Lions Pub in Milwaukee, Wisconsin is just the place for me. They've got everything. Great pub food, a wonderful selection of draft beers, and a brilliant atmosphere, especially during Premier League matches. Check out the Three Lions Pub menu at threelionspub.com, where you can also find all their specials and the great events that take place throughout the year. Three Lions Pub, where across the pond is now across the street.
Speaking of Three Lions Pub, this weekend they got some big games that they're showing. Of course, Tottenham and Liverpool, which is going to depend a lot on where those two end up the rest of the season. Saturday at 11:30 a.m., Chelsea versus Burnley at 7:30 a.m. on Sunday. That 11:30 a.m. game, the Tottenham-Liverpool, is on Saturday, just to be clear. They're going to have drink specials for those games. On top of this, Baxter, Thursday evening, they have their Kronbacher beer dinner coming up.
Kronbacher.
So make sure you go to their Facebook page. A lot more information there. But that's all happening at Three Lions Pub, who we are so thankful to be the big sponsor of our show.
Welcome back inside the Attention Area Media Studios. I am Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon Provan. You've got a really cool and unique story that you wanted to share in the first segment, but we just ran out of time.
Of course.
I wanted to pass the floor over to you now so you can share this really kind of a touching story that you found.
I think that's the best way to say it, Baxter. Really touching. This is at collectspace.com. I was alive when the Challenger space shuttle blew up in space. I was in third grade. I'll never forget it. Just thinking about it now still has me tear up. If you don't know much about it, it was the first time that aliens were going to be flown into space, including some teachers on there as well. Well, one of the gentlemen that was on that ill-fated flight had taken a soccer ball with him that was signed by his daughter and members of her soccer team down in Texas. Challenger blew up on its way into orbit. They ended up finding the soccer ball in the ocean.
Really?
Baxter. So Shane Kimbrough, the commander of the International Space Station expedition crew, posted a picture on Twitter on Friday of that soccer ball having actually been flown into space now. So 30 years later, that ill-fated Challenger drive into space is now being memorialized in such a cool way, and of course with that soccer ball connected to the soccer
awesome,
world.
though. I feel like that's really a special thing, in all honesty, when you think about what that means. The generations coming together, basically. And I'm sure that the daughter, thought it was really special too when she found out about it as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's definitely a very cool and touching story at the same time too. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, keeping with the soccer world, specifically more so on the women's side of things. For those of you that remember, last week we had Melissa Tancredi on our show. It was just days before she was playing her final game for the Canadian women's national team. I told her she had to score a hat trick. She didn't score a hat trick, but she still was a vital part of what Mexico and Canada battled to a 3-2 overall victory for the Canadians in front of almost 23,000 fans. That right there, if people want to question whether or not women's soccer is alive and well in Canada, I think that's a very good indication. I don't even think the men's team gets 23,000 people out to their games consistently.
Right. No, I agree with you, Baxter. We'd have to go and research that, but we know the U.S. men's team hasn't been doing that.
Yeah, I certainly would have to agree with you on that one. But a big game overall. Tancredi didn't score, unfortunately, but Deanna Rose had a goal, and then Yanni Becky scored 2 as well. So the Canadians definitely proving that they are still a very dominant force, deserving to be a top 4 team or top 5 team. I forget exactly where they rank currently in women's soccer. But they bid farewell in the 76th minute to Melissa Tancredi, who ends her international career with 27 goals and 124 appearances in just she came on in the 76th minute. She started on the bench, rather, pardon me. But still, just a great thing for her, and we wish her the very best. And we got to go visit her chiropractor place there in Vancouver sometime.
Well, I think that's why they didn't play her in the first 76 minutes. She was still getting stuff together, all lined up for her business.
Exactly. She's like, hold on, guys, I gotta work a couple more clients on the sidelines here fast before I can get into the game. But we wish her the very best, and I'm very curious to see. Canada is always one of those teams that they're going to be good. You know that they're going to compete at a high level. I would honestly not be mad if Canada won a World Cup before the U.S. did again, in all honesty.
Yeah. I mean,
unless they beat the U.S.
We do see a youth movement going on with the U.S., so that right there might set the U.S. back a little bit, purposefully.
It certainly might. And we heard Tancredi talk a lot about the youth that the Canadians have, but how dominant those youth players are. She's like, I forget these players are only 22, 23 years old, and they're already, high-class stars. Sabrina D'Angelo's been on our show a couple of times. She's only 23 years old. She's a championship-winning goalie, and she's one of the starters as well, too, for this national team.
Oh, she's absolutely wonderful to watch, too.
Exactly. So you look at Canada, and you'd like to think there might be this change of the guard in the international level, potentially. I'm looking forward to the next Canada versus USA women's soccer game, to say the least.
Absolutely.
The Chicago Red Stars, Simon, have a new logo. I love logos. As you know, I'm a very brand person. I enjoy wearing them and sporting them all the time. Have you seen the new logo? Do you like the new logo?
I'm looking at it right now.
What do you think of the new logo?
I think
initially?
It's I think it's slick, Baxter. I love it.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I mean, you look at it, it's definitely that more traditional soccer crest,
yep.
I think, which is really sharp. It has the red stars on it, which also is very representation of the city of Chicago.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what I really like about it. I love their uniforms, too. I'm cool with jersey sponsors, first of all, I want to say that. But what I do love about the Red Stars jersey is it reflects the city flag. And it's tough, of course, for us to be sitting here complimenting anything that's Chicago. Not Red Stars, just the city, because, we're Milwaukee guys, so it goes against our grain.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing that I love about Chicago, I love their city flag. I love the simplicity of it.
True.
And for the fact that the Red Stars have really taken that on, I think it's very slick what they've done.
And I think it's funny, too, that they've been popularizing the Frank Sinatra song, My Kind of Town, as well, too, as part of the brand campaign. I saw an ad with Casey Short come out recently with her with the Red Stars utilizing the public transportation system as part of just their rebrand. They're embracing so much more of what Chicago is now, I feel like, which will hopefully help drive fans out to more games as well, too, to say, hey, we're very much a part of this city. We actually play, in the Chicago area to an extent, but I think they are going to still play their games in 2017. Are they? Yeah, they're going to be playing at Toyota Park, I think, though. So they're going to still be down in Bridgeview, unfortunately. But I feel like, I don't know. Chicago's just, I know we go back and forth on the whole Chicago thing in terms of they should have a stadium in Chicago instead of in Bridgeview, but I think that the Red Stars are doing a great job overall of building more brand awareness for soccer in Chicago.
Yeah, and that's the thing. As you said, we do go back and forth, and for people who are maybe more newbies to American soccer and saying, why did they build a stadium in Bridgeview? Again, you got to remember, this was a time when soccer stadiums were still a new idea for the most part. I mean, it was either the third or fourth soccer-specific stadium in the country. So that was a time where, and of course it was built by the Chicago Fire. Mm-hmm. People of Bridgeview paid for the whole thing. Yeah. So you look at that and you go, at a time when soccer stadiums were still being thought of, to get a stadium paid for completely, you say yes to it.
Exactly, regardless of where it's located to an extent.
Right, and now we're looking, several years down the road here now, and we're saying, you know what, it's the downtown stadiums that work. So it's a tough thing because the city of Bridgeview paid for the stadium. They've been promised certain things, so you can't just pack up and leave. There are legal ramifications with it.
You're absolutely right about that. Yeah, I certainly hope that Chicago, among other cities, figures out their stadium debacle at some point, but you never really know exactly, though, with that to an extent where the pieces are going to fall, I guess. So one other thing too that I'm curious to get your thoughts about as well too is Backline Soccer has been talking about their top 5 players at every position, basically, that they think in NWSL, and they recently came up with their number 1 forward they believe in NWSL, and they say it's Kristen Press. Kristen Press, as many folks know, is a very dynamic and explosive player. She has been a vital part of what the Chicago Red Stars have done since she joined the team back in 2014. She's scored over 16 total goals since she's been in Chicago. She scored 8 goals in 14 games for the national team during 2016. Does Kristen Press being called the number 1 striker in NWSL seem accurate to you, Simon?
It's a tough one because, are they talking currently now who's playing? Are they talking about...
They're saying all time. They're saying that Kristen Press is the all-time best or greatest forward, I guess, to play in NWSL.
In the NWSL. Because it's tough when you look at Lynn Williams' stats last season.
Yes. I don't know.
Kristen Press is an explosive player. And she's one of the main reasons Chicago almost made the playoffs last year as well. They did.
Chicago lost in the semifinal.
That's right. Thank you. Sorry. Yep. I had a brain fart there.
It's all good.
Late nights.
That happens.
Yeah, I mean, she's the main... Really, she is the main reason that Chicago got to where they got to.
Yes.
In many respects.
I don't know. I have a hard time, in all honesty, thinking that Kristen Press is the very best that NWSL has to offer. I know that Alex Morgan had some might say, more of a down year last year with how she played, but to say that Kristen Press is the best NWSL has ever had at the forward position, I feel like Abby Wambach had a lot of really good success when she was in the league for the time that she was there. I don't know. I don't know if I agree. If we're playing the current card, I don't think she's the best current forward in the league. I don't necessarily know who I think the number 1 is, though, so that's where it gets a little dicey.
Well, here's the thing, and it's the timing of it, because I would argue that if Crystal Dunn had not signed with Chelsea, she's got my pick for number 1 as best forward currently in the league.
True. That's a very valid point, in all honesty. I think between her, I really am hoping to see more from Kealia Ohai this season. Lynn Williams, as you mentioned, as well, too. There's a trio of players that I think can really step up this 2017 season and really propel themselves even farther. And that's without even seeing any of these rookies get on the field as well, too. But yeah, realistically, though, Kristen Press, Alex Morgan, Amy Rodriguez, Sydney LaRue, 4 gals right there that we know from the national team perspective are all high-quality class ladies that are going to put the ball in the back of the net consistently. Is Kristen Press the number 1? I think she's tied for number 1. I don't necessarily think she's the outright number 1.
Sure, and then, you also look at Portland too, a player who doesn't get much mention, but had a fantastic season last year, Nadia Nadim.
Yeah, another
9 goals in 21 games.
Another certainly fantastic player. They do have Becky Sauerbrunn listed as the all-time best defender in NWSL, and they have Kim Little listed as the all-time greatest midfielder to play.
I would have to agree with Kim Little.
Kim Little, 100%. Yes, I'm 100% on that one. Becky Sauerbrunn makes complete sense to me as well. I don't know. Kristen Press is the only one, though, that I look at. I'm just like, I struggle with a little bit to justify if that's a real thing or not. So, all right, well, we're going to go to a break. I gave you the wrong information. Nicole Barnhart's going to be here in our fourth segment, not our third segment. So we're going to jump into MLS when we come back and talk about Freddie Adu. He's no longer trialing with the Timbers, but I'm curious to get Simon's thoughts about the Wonder Kid back in MLS, at least with his Timbers for a little while, and some other MLS preseason information as well, too. We'll be back with more. It's Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub after this. Welcome back to Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon Provan. Quick reminder for everybody, they can go check out our website, 2upfrontsoccer.com. That's the number 2. You can find out all the amazing guests that have been on our show before, learn more about Simon and myself, and catch past episodes, and buy a T-shirt as well, too. $15 for a T-shirt. We haven't put the hats up yet.
We haven't. I've just been too lazy.
$15 for a hat? I forget what it is for the hats, but somewhere in that general vicinity.
Yeah.
So, but we appreciate the support. We've already had a couple people buy shirts, so thank you for doing that. We love seeing people and hearing from people that we don't even know that enjoy listening to the show. So that means we're doing something right. If we have people that are coming up to us, be like, "Hey, you guys do a great job," be like, "Oh, well, thank you."
At least a couple times a week. Apparently, we're doing something. Yeah.
Apparently,
or a couple times a month.
A couple times a month, depending on exactly. And I was thinking about that today. I'm like, is it really only been a once a week thing for just the last 2 weeks? I'm like, it feels way longer since I've seen Simon. But I'm like, well, I guess it's just the current season that we're in.
Exactly.
And we have teased about 1 trillion times. We have things that we're working on in the background, but we just haven't gotten a lot of confirmation on things quite yet. So as we know more, of course, you guys will be the first to know, so we appreciate your patience with that. All right, one man that has been very patient with his career since the age of 14 has been Freddie Adu, and he got a 2-week contract trial with the Portland Timbers, which unfortunately ended without an offer.
Unfortunately? I guess for him.
For him.
Yes.
The team itself says there was just no space on the Timbers roster for Adu. He had 2 weeks, and we were upfront and honest with him about what we were at. More than anything, you look at the depth, there just was not going to be a spot, which I agree with. Who is he going to replace? Who is he going to back
that's
up?
the thing. I mean, you know, they recently had their huge signing with Sebastian Blanco.
Yeah.
You look at who they still have on the squad. Obviously, Adi is playing up front. Dayron Asprilla can play midfield or forward. You just go down the list of the number of players they have offensively that there's just not going to be a spot for Freddie Adu. What the Timbers need to focus on is their defense. And I know Porter did come out and say that they've been looking for center backs. Obviously, Nat Borchers recently retired because of the Achilles injury that he had, so his career's done. But they've got to shore up that defense. Not only finding their starting 3 or 4, but finding depth for the back line as well.
Exactly, and that was the one thing you preached about all season long, and I even echo as a Revolution fan that the defense has to get worked on if these teams are going to be fantastic. You can have the best offense in the league, but if you're still allowing 2 or 3 goals in a game, you can't afford to get into shootouts every single game and be like, oh, we won 4-3 or 5-4. It's like, no, it's not the last team that scores the goal kind of thing. You want to be able to sit in there and win those 1-0 games, for taking, the lead in the 5th minute and just being able to hold on for 85 minutes with a high-class defense, which I don't think you and I would agree with that Portland doesn't have right now.
No, and they've made some moves, I guess, highlighted by Roy Miller, who used to play with the Red Bulls, but he's not the most consistent player either. I mean, he can be very, very strong. And don't get me wrong, as a Timbers fan, I'm excited to see Roy Miller with the Timbers coming from Saprissa out of Costa Rica most recently. So it's a nice pickup for them, but they need to do more. I need to see more defenders back there that we go, okay, good, now I feel comfortable.
I think I was looking, well, it was when Brian Dunseth was on the show, so I think that was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He and I were straight on to the Revolution topic briefly, and I looked at the Revolution roster at that moment before they had confirmed their signings, and they had only had 3 confirmed official defenders on their roster. They have then signed 2 center backs, so things, and of course drafted a couple people as well since that time. But to think that team was going into the off season with 3 true defenders was terrifying, and I think New England still has a lot to do. They tied one of their preseason games against Minnesota 1-1. I haven't seen if they've done anything else since that point, but either way, we'll have to see.
Part of it is Baxter's. You're looking at the way
they beat Sporting Kansas City yesterday 2-1.
Oh, Woo! They did. All right,
go Revs. Anyway, as you were.
Part of it is the salary cap. And what sells tickets? Offense.
Yeah.
So a lot of these teams that they've spent a lot of money up top, the Timbers are one of those teams, you don't have much left for your defensive units as far as the cash that you got on hand. So, you think if the salary cap gets raised, that is where teams would focus on is building depth and defensively.
I agree. I wanna go out of left field here for you fast, and I think this is kind of we're gonna, as we get closer to MLS kicking off, we're gonna preview the conferences, preview the teams a lot more. But out of just sheer curiosity, I want to pick one team from each conference and just get your general thoughts about expectations. All right. For this upcoming season. I think a big topic of conversation in the West is Colorado.
Yeah, I feel like we should have like a countdown clock, like this is a Price is Right or something.
Exactly. So what are the realistic expectations for Colorado in 2017? And this doesn't have to be super in-depth right away, but I'm curious to get your thoughts about a team that finished in second, that was undefeated at home last year, 58 points in the Western Conference. I think a surprise team out of everywhere. You thought they were going to make the playoffs. You didn't think they were going to do that well, though. Right. But what do we realistically think about Colorado this season?
And as you said, I don't have anything sitting in front of me. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think there's going to be much of a change with Colorado in that they're not going to have much offensive output, but they're going to be really strong on defense. I don't see them finishing as high as they did this year. I think they will. I know I've said in an earlier show they won't make the playoffs this coming year just for fun.
Yeah.
I think they make the playoffs, but again, I'm looking at more like a 5th and 6th seed, Baxter.
And that's what you had initially listed them at, too.
Right.
I think you had them predicted to be your 6th seed before the season started, basically. But, Colorado is so interesting. I mean, you can make the argument that, Jermaine Jones won't be there anymore, but really, what did he do for them consistently? He played, 9 games, I think, for the Rapids in 2016, so I don't feel like losing Jermaine Jones is going to have a dramatic effect on what Colorado does.
I agree with
2017. Will they be undefeated at home this season? I don't think so. The defense is good. Axel Horberg is a fantastic player. We know that. And the defense was great with Tim Howard, of course, as well, too. But Tim Howard has gotten another year older, and Colorado still doesn't have a dynamic offense to help bail out their defense consistently.
Exactly, right.
You can have a great defense, but if you're not having the offense that can possess the ball and keep the ball out of your own half, it doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, and actually, I have to say the Rapids are lucky to still have Axel Holberg in the back.
He was supposed to go to Sweden, wasn't he?
Yeah, there were a lot of talks about him transferring over into the Scandinavian countries.
All right, then flipping over to the Eastern Conference, I'm just picking 2 teams here at random willy-nilly. What about the Montreal Impact in 2017? A team that finished in 5th place, 7-5-5 at home, 45 total points. 11, 11, and 12 overall on the season. Those 12 ties, I think, is kind of what killed them a little bit. If you draw that many games, it means you were in games, but then you also maybe let some games get away at the same time. Montreal, realistically, we knew that they were a good team going into last season. I think you and I had them predicted to do exceptionally well. And then the thing with Drogba kind of hit a little bit, and Montreal I always felt like you never knew what you were going to get with Montreal. They were kind of like the Sky Blue FC of the NWSL. You didn't ever really know what you were going to get as long as Piatti was on the field. I mean, Piatti was a great player. We have no doubt about that. But aside from Piatti, and we played this game a lot, we're like, if you get rid of Piatti, who does Montreal realistically have? And neither of us could really come up with a true answer in that form.
No, I do remember that Montreal started the season strong. Then they had their swoon in the middle of the season. They got really strong again at the end of the season. It's going to depend on the players that they do have. There's talk of Super Mario coming over and possibly playing with Montreal. Matt Doyle kind of teased at that a little bit.
I don't know. Is that realistic?
Sure. He's out of contract this summer.
That's true.
Was it realistic when there was talk of Drogba coming over? Certainly didn't seem like it.
That's true. Drogba and Balotelli, I feel like, would be a fun... I would pay to go to the game to see those two up top, just for fun.
But Drogba is done, isn't he? I thought he
may, but I think you're right now at that point. So Super Mario running rampant, as it were, I think would be interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too, depends on the play of Evan Bush in the back as the goalkeeper. He was also very strong at times, but also much of a sieve at times. So some inconsistency from him. He's got to shore up his game. That's the big question for me once again is in the back you've got a player like Simon who was fantastic last year. Can he continue to lead that defensive unit? So they are up in the air. I still see them making the playoffs, Baxter, and I see them possibly even contending in the East.
Interesting. All right, any other final thoughts for us before we run to a break, Simon?
I hope the Timbers make the playoffs.
Oh, we'll get to the Timbers and the Revolution and everybody else at some point. But I agree with you. I think the playoffs are a lot less exciting when the Portland Timbers are not involved in them, in my opinion.
Hey, listen, yes, they're my club, but what I like about them is they tend to go for it when they're in the playoffs.
True.
And sometimes you get a double post bounce that helps you, but we'll take
it. Still counts. All right, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, Nicole Barnhart of FC Kansas Ciy will be here with us on the shopfutsal.com call-in line. Stay with us. 2 Up Front, 3 Lines Pub. Back right after this. Welcome back inside the Attention Era Media Studios. It's 2 Up Front, presented by 3 Lines Pub. I am Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon Provan, rolling along with the program. Every time I say that, I'm like, program. I think I made a joke about it once, and you gave me a weird look, and then I stopped.
Hey, my name has been associated with cheese, provolone, with drugs, Prozac, so... It's cool.
I never thought about
all over
that
the place.
Okay. Well, we won't be talking. We could talk about cheese.
Thankfully, the name's also been associated with soccer quite a bit.
Good. Your brothers have certainly helped with that.
And my sister.
You as a that's right. I always forget about your sister.
Yeah,
as well,
fantastic
too.
Player.
Good for her. We got to have her on the show too. We've had almost the entire Provan clan on the show, I feel like. But all right, time for our first guest today. Joining us on the shopfutsal.com call-in line is the goalkeeper for FC Kansas Ciy. It's Nicole Barnhart, and she joins us now. Nicole, welcome to 2 Up Front. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, you guys.
Absolutely. We are excited to have you on. We heard you just got out of training a little while ago, which I'm sure has got to be a little lonely in the off season currently. But preseason is around the corner, so I'm sure that's got to be exciting. But how are you feeling in the off season here as you continue to get ready for another NWSL season?
Feeling good. Yeah, obviously, the off-season training is a little lonely. Luckily, there's a couple people in town to train with a little bit, but definitely looking forward to getting back into the team environment and really getting going. I think, just with the way season kind of ended last year, not making the playoffs, I think it just makes you that much more kind of eager and excited to get rolling with this season.
Going off of how the season ended last year, I mean, you ladies had won back-to-back NWSL titles, did not make the playoffs. And in any other sport, I think there would be mass rioting in the streets for the most part. And that's nothing to take away from the NWSL or the media coverage on it. That's why we're talking about it, because we actually care about it and have a strong opinion about it. But what was the vibe when you guys go from having such great success to then not even being the first team out, you're the second team out, I guess, in terms of being behind the Seattle Reign in the standings for missing the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit frustrating. Every season, our first goal is to make the playoffs, to give ourselves a chance to potentially get into that championship game. But at the same time, going into the season, we knew it was going to be a little bit more of a challenging season for us, just with so many retirements and a couple of pregnancies that, those are key players that really were impactful for us on and off the field. And to go in without those players, we knew some other players were going to have to step up, and it was going to be a little bit of a younger team and a different team than we'd had in the past. So we knew it was not going to be easy going into it.
What are your thoughts about kind of shifting a little bit here in the NWSL? What are your thoughts about the new TV deal that has been signed by the NWSL and the A&E networks overall? Is it a good move overall for the league? Do you feel like it's going to actually help the league grow and get in front of more fans?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, it's exciting any kind of media outlet you can get. At this point, it's still a growing and developing, expanding league, and that's just one of the growth that has happened in the 4 seasons going into the 5th season now. So I think any coverage that you can get, the more coverage you can get, the more exposure you can get, and just the more that you can get players, faces, and teams and everything out there for the general crowd and not just the sports fans. I think it'll be very impactful and continue to help grow the league in the future.
Nicole, shifting gears a bit, I'm curious about your thoughts. You've been in the game for quite a while as a goalkeeper, but you also played lacrosse and basketball in your youth. There's a lot of talk right now of so much focus on getting young players to just focus on soccer. I'm curious about your thoughts on that, and especially as a goalkeeper, if you think one of the advantages we may have as a country for goalkeepers is playing those other sports that maybe work on quicker reaction time with your hands.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the times have changed a lot from when I was a youth and growing up, but I do think personally that playing all those other sports were very beneficial for me. I played actually a little bit of baseball when I was younger, basketball, lacrosse, and I think it's just you learn to pick up the ball differently, read the game differently. You just put into having to move different ways, and I think that when you get all those different perspectives from different sports, and it really is beneficial. I think that all kind of ties together, and I think it kind of develops a full athlete almost.
And I would definitely agree with that, too. I mean, especially at the position that you play, you hear all about, different positions on the field, trying to do different things in the offseason to stay in shape. But as you mentioned, as a goalkeeper, you have to use your hands. That's one thing that's when the rules of soccer be like, oh, don't use your hands. But as a goalkeeper, like, well, that's how you make your living, is using your hands to make those dynamic saves. But you yourself as a goalkeeper have, like you said, you've been around for, a fair amount of time. You've seen a lot of things at the local and international level as well, too. I'm curious to get your thoughts on the state of the U.S. women's national team goalkeeper pool right now, because you haven't appeared in an international match for a couple of seasons, but you obviously were a very vital part for a long time. It was kind of, Nicole Barnhart and Hope Solo. That was the conversation for a long time. But what are your thoughts about some of these younger goalkeepers coming through the ranks, and or even just the current players in camp right now that are going to likely command the between the posts here going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's still kind of a growing point. It's a position that there wasn't a lot of opportunity given. So that pool of players is still trying, I think, to be developed and figured out. And I think it's, it's open, it's a position that's open to anybody at this point in time. It's just going to be a matter of who really steps in and makes the most of that opportunity. And I think it's, this is kind of the time when you can bring in some of the youth and start to develop them and start to figure out who that, future person may be that you want to spend time on and really develop. But, I think it's something that you're going to hopefully see some more people get in and get an opportunity and see who can step in to figure out who that 1, 2, and 3 may be going forward.
Have you seen from your experience, is there a clear 1, 2, 3, or even a couple that you personally think deserve the shot more than others?
Obviously the last couple camps, it's been Alyssa Nair and Ashlyn Harris. Beyond that, I'm not sure who their number 3 would be. I think it's something where they're still trying to figure it out, and it's something where you really have to give people games, I think, to be able to see that and who can and can't make it at the next level or who you want to put time in to develop. But not being around that environment and not seeing that, it's hard to say without, being there for the ins and outs of trainings and games and everything.
Nicole, changing gears once again, I like to do that quite a bit. Shifting back to FC Kansas City. Looking at your draft, obviously one of the big concerns for FC Kansas City was on the defensive side of things. Christina Gibbons, first-round pick, 5th selection overall, out of Duke University, likes to get up and down the field. What are your thoughts on her? I don't know if you've had much time to scout her at all, but just curious if you have any thoughts on Christina.
No, I've heard that she's a very exciting player. I think she's one of those players that is going to come in and work really hard and hopefully be impactful from the start. It'll be good to get that player on the flank that can get up and down and be dangerous in the attack, but can defend well, but can keep the ball for us, be composed on the ball. And I think that, from what I've heard, and, it'll be exciting to get her in and see her in a couple weeks in preseason. But I'm excited to get her in and see what she can do. I think she's one of those players that definitely has a future, and just playing in this league is going to be so beneficial for her, that being in this training environment day in, day out, to continue to develop as a player and to continue to get looks at the full national team as well.
Do you veterans have any fun things that you guys do to pick on the rookies at all when they come into camp for the first time?
No, I think we're a pretty nice group here in Kansas City. I don't know about other teams, but I think it's one of the things that makes our team really special here is just the bond we have, not just on the field but off the field. I think we're pretty inclusive with the rookies and the veteran players, and everybody spends time together on and off the field. And I think it's fun. I think it's a really fun group, a really fun environment to be in, both soccer-wise and just the family environment that's here as well.
How does your game plan, to an extent as a goalkeeper, knowing the players you have in front of you on the field, change now that you won't have Heather O'Reilly for the first part of the season?
I think our game plan as a team has always been to go out and possess the ball, knock it around, play that nice soccer. Defensively, I think we were pretty solid last year. I think we struggled a bit in the offensive end, so I think the big difference for us is to come out and be a little bit more dangerous going forward in the attack. And, with some of these players we have coming back or coming in, I think we have the opportunity to do that this year.
How relieved are you to have some of those offensive firepower in Amy Rodriguez and Sydney LaRue coming back?
I think it's going to be fun. I'm really excited to get going this season and get those players back in and playing with them again, and to be that really dynamic, dangerous team in the attack, to build on our solid defense that we had and continue to just be a little bit more of that solid team all around. They're very fun, dynamic players to have on the field, and they're players that you always want on your team and not having
absolutely
to play against, especially with that pace that the both of them bring up front, and there's goal scorers. So I'm very excited to get them back in and playing and on the field with us this season.
Well, absolutely. Well, Nicole, we appreciate your time today, and we are certainly excited to see what FC Kansas City has in store for us in the 2017 NWSL season, and we hope that we can get you back on as well sometime during the season to check in and see how things are going, okay?
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good. Right. Thank you very much, I guess.
Absolutely,
thanks, Nicole.
There goes Nicole Barnhart on the shopfutsal.com call-in line, and we will definitely have more conversations with her and many other NWSL players as we progress throughout the off-season and the upcoming NWSL season as well. All right, Simon, time for a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show, but a friend of the show will be back with us, so it'll be almost like a homecoming. It'll be so exciting. Rachel Wood will be here with us. We'll talk to her right after this. It's 2 Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub.
Welcome back to 2 Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
Back here at the Attention Era Media Studios. Great conversation in our last segment with FC Kansas City goalkeeper Nicole Barnhart. Great to hear from the U.S. soccer veteran. And just soccer veteran as a whole, too. Just very knowledgeable, definitely tells it how it is, and very optimistic about the upcoming FC Kansas season, I think, as well, too.
Yeah, you know, we haven't heard much from FC Kansas City, so it was nice to get her on the show and give us some insight there as well.
Absolutely. All right, Simon, I feel like I need like a theme song for our next guest. I don't have anything good, though, I feel like. I don't know. I don't even know what would be an appropriate song to play.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Maybe by Crazy by Gnarls Barkley? I don't know. In a good way. In a good way.
Crazy good. Yes, back on the program since, I don't even remember the last time she was on the show.
Too long ago.
That's how long ago it was. It is Rachel Wood, formerly of the Boston Breakers, now a roaming free agent. No, she's retired from professional soccer, I think, but hopefully she can let us know more about that. On the shopfutsal.com line right now, Rachel Wood, welcome back to 2 Up Front.
What's going on, guys? By the way, I can give you plenty of theme songs, so we can chat about that after the show.
Okay, we'll have to put that into your contract or something.
I live my life through music, and now with my whole new Soul Cycle adventure, they play such good songs that I'm sure I can find a good one.
Okay, well you'll have to have your people send that to us then.
And you just came from spin class, is that right? You're saying?
I did. I'm still in my my leggings, and I have my sweet spin shoes in the car with me.
You have
it's a good blush.
shoes?
It's a different cleat now that I put on my feet, but it's still a cleat. So
what's a spin shoe? I'm Googling spin shoes right now. I don't know what those look like.
They're not the most attractive shoes, and I haven't found ones that tie. They're all Velcro.
Make it easy then on you. That's good. That's good. You know,
exactly.
Rachel, the only thing about spinning for me that I can't get over is you don't go anywhere. It's like I feel like if I'm going to put that much
That's
effort
like
into
treadmill
something,
running for me. I'm like,
get me
I
somewhere.
get nothing out of it. I just feel like
it just comes down to the fact that I'm jealous that you're able to do this. That's all it is.
Simon has a secret
Well,
spin.
I'm like terrified.
Addiction.
I had like a bad experience as a kid riding bikes on the street. And so like I'm terrified. Like I like riding bikes, but I'm terrified to go anywhere on them. So like spinning is a good solution for me.
Gotcha. A nice, safe, happy environment with fun music and encouragement, basically.
Just be careful, though.
Exactly.
One day Baxter and I may show up with cardboard cutouts of cars and just,
Yeah, be
run
like, watch
past
out,
it.
Rachel, while you're trying to do your
my
spinning.
PTSD.
Oh my gosh! I think we need to like start a trip now. We need to go to Vancouver to get a chiropractor appointment with Melissa Tancredi. Now we have to go have cardboard cutout cars with Rachel at her spin class. Basically, is there anywhere else we need to go? We're going from Vancouver to Boston. I feel like we got to stop somewhere in the middle to help break up the trip.
Oh my gosh. No, you don't need to stop anywhere in the middle. Just come on down.
Okay, sounds good.
So, Rachel,
Yeah.
what have you been up to?
Aside from spinning,
Aside from spinning, so I think it was like September since I last talked to you guys.
yeah, you started
so
off your
since then-
relationship with us with a bang by just basically crucifying me on the air for being a Houston Dash fan, and it all kind of went from there.
Yes, and then our relationship budded, and then I went MIA from the show.
True. Yeah.
But no, since then I have coached a high school team through a fairly successful season.
Hey.
We lost in the quarterfinals of the state tournament. But
Wow.
bless our girls, we have the best team. And although not the most talented team that always steps on the field, we know, one of our captains said it best at our banquet, that they know that they love each other more than the other team. And so, we have just this incredible culture, and it's such a fun time of the year for me. So I was able to do that, and then have decided to not play this upcoming season, and have actually been working on building an academy. So I'm working with a lot of young girls to basically teach them soccer, work, individual small groups, that kind of stuff, but also help to sort of teach them, I think good, important life lessons for young women, which is, self-confidence, self-efficacy.
Absolutely,
all that kind of stuff, yeah.
So that's kind of how you're going
So
to
it's
spend your
been-
2017 year then, basically, is this non-soccer playing style of life, I guess, and spinning your way through life then?
Spinning my way through life, and, I'll still be around the game, coaching it, and I'm hoping to maybe play in obviously a slightly less competitive league than
Sure.
the professional league. But, I still want to kick around, and, soccer's obviously my first love, and, I've been doing it it's crazy. I've actually been doing it. I say this to my kids. I'm like, I have been playing soccer for twice as long as you've been alive, because I work with like 10 and 11-year-olds sometimes.
Wow.
And you should see their faces. Like, their eyes get so big, and I'm like, oh my
You're
God, I
old,
am
Rachel.
that old.
Wow.
I know. I'm going to
But-
need a custom cane built soon.
But I do have to say, especially someone who's a father of two young daughters, I love to hear what you're doing, Rachel. It's so important for young ladies to, know how powerful they are and how valued they are. So to have somebody like yourself there doing that work, I give you big kudos for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. And I think, for so long, soccer, especially in the youth level, has sort of grown comfortable with the idea of the old school style coach. So, a coach that gets in your face to motivate. And I am a firm believer in the exact opposite, because I had that growing up, and it wasn't good for my self-esteem, for my self-confidence, for any of that. And so I want to make sure that these young girls know that they can do anything, and that you get such better results when you believe in your players, and you coach them with, positive reinforcement. And I often say, I correct, but I don't criticize. And I think it's so important to have that message in a young girl's life.
Yeah.
I mean, in any kid's life, really. I mean, I work with boys too, but my main, my sort of main player pool is young girls.
Sure. Well, I've just figured out your theme song now for any time you come on the show.
Oh.
It's got to be anything you can do, I can do better. That's
Yes.
it.
Oh,
That's got to be
I'm
it.
That one.
in a slightly different direction. I was thinking that you were going to say like Beyonce, Who Run the World, and I'm like, yeah,
that also makes sense. Yeah, I would support that one as well too. So when we have
but
you on the
anything
show
you can
again,
do, yeah, that's a good one.
yeah. Well, if it's a more light mood, maybe we'll play that one. If you're just coming on to just give us the hot takes, we'll have to go Run the World. I
There
guess,
you
with
go.
Beyonce.
There you go.
You know, you can't
Perfect.
go soft and light and have Beyonce be your entrance song. That just doesn't work for me.
I know, right? When I'm like dishing the latest gossip in the NWSL from all my friends.
Exactly. Do you have any hot takes for us right now? I'm assuming you might not, but I'm curious since you brought it up.
I actually don't. I've been so focused on my work that I've literally like locked myself in my little apartment in snowy Boston and haven't come out except for to coach.
Can we have a brief conversation about something you and I talked about just really quickly last week about the players that were chosen to represent the NWSL at the A&E network announcement?
Oh, God. Sure, Baxter.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is
Let's
because
chat.
you made really good points about, and I had the side thought. I don't know if Simon thought this as well too. You look at the players that the NWSL brought to the announcement, and it was a virtual who's who in question marks of who's who. Who are these players, basically? Because you have players that I don't feel fully represent what NWSL is. If you're making such a landmark deal and what the NWSL is talking about, where is Tobin Heath? Where is Ali Long? Where is Morgan Bryan that also represent these NWSL teams, but then also represent the women's national team as well too? And I was a little turned off by the fact, no offense, I love a lot of these ladies, but why Christy Mewis or Steph McCaffrey or some of these other players that were asked in were there because realistically, I didn't think they had done a whole lot to deserve that sort of a promotion and that sort of a light.
I'm going to listen to your guys' conversation and actually I have a counterpoint to that.
Okay, Rachel, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to touch on Simon's counterpoint here, but I agree. I think for the initial announcement and launch of such a huge deal, I think that we needed more household names there as sort of, as the hook, right? As, as sort of the attention grabber to get people interested. And then, and maybe this is what they were trying to do, is try to bring some new players up with the hope that these are the players that they're going to, be creating sort of these household names and, they're entrepreneurs and, Steph and Christy and Sam have their Sporting Chic thing. And I know that Lynn Williams, has a side business and stuff like that. So maybe their hope was to bring these players in to basically say, hey, these are some of the new, and upcoming faces
the
that
new guard,
we're going to be featuring. So, get to know them because, or, recognize their faces because you're going to get to know them with this new deal.
Sure.
However, I think in order to have sort of a stronger statement and to say, hey, look, we're here to play, we needed sort of the bigger name people.
And I'm not saying you need to just make it a star-studded affair where the U.S. national team themselves walked in and it's like, all right, we're all here, but I feel like just a little bit better mix and match there. Even like if you sub a couple of those players, like Kristen Press for Steph McCaffrey or Morgan Bryan or Tobin Heath, even where you've got, they're not like, some people might argue they're the most notable players, but it wasn't Carly Lloyd, it wasn't Alex Morgan, it wasn't Hope Solo in that regards. Like you're still bringing in quality, well-known players without bringing in like your absolute first-string overall player when it comes to promoting something. Simon, what are your thoughts here?
And I think it was great to have Christy Rampone. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt Simon.
Go ahead.
Sorry. But I think it was
my
great
life.
to have Christy Rampone there. with two daughters, you got to get used to it.
That's true.
I get why she was there because, as a women's soccer player, right, she's done so much for the game, and I obviously know who she is, and people who follow the NWSL know who she is and know how valuable she is to the league, just all of the incredible things that she's done. However, if you replace her with, say, Carly Lloyd, who's the FIFA, or Tobin, who's the FIFA Player of the Year, or the U.S. or the CONCACAF Player of the Year, that carries a bit more weight to it. And then, you could have done something where, Tobin or Carly is speaking, and then, you could have brought Christy Rampone up for the Q&A and, have someone ask her, how is this different from, the past iterations of the league that you've been in, which I have to argue Carly Lloyd and Tobin Heath have also been in. So, I think the ideas were there. I think
it could have been a little bit better.
Some of those, having those stronger name players or those more high-profile players, I think would have given it a little bit extra of an oomph.
Yeah, I would agree with
so
that.
I don't disagree with you guys. I think having some of those name players there would have been good. But I'm ultimately okay with this. First of all, we don't know if their conversations were had with some of the bigger names, and they said, you know what, that's not my thing.
Yep.
You got the NWSL MVP there from 2016, Lynn Williams. That makes sense.
That's a huge one.
To have your number one overall draft pick there makes a lot of sense, Rose Lavelle. I actually think the Mewis sisters...
I was in support of that one, I got to say.
Absolutely.
I think the Mewis sisters mainly are there because the league is also showing that, we got family ties in this. And that's a good selling point to families, obviously. You do have Alyssa Nair, who is a U.S. national team keeper right now.
True.
Rampone is a representative of the history of women's soccer. And then, the one that was maybe a wild card for me was Stephanie McCaffrey. It's nothing against her.
Yeah.
But the one thing I actually...
So from my perspective, she's like a third Mewis sister. You know what I mean? They're almost
she really is.
Sure.
So
the one thing
that makes more sense to me. The
one thing I would have liked to have seen is why not have one player from every team?
That's
there?
what I thought they were going to do.
That's what would make sense for me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's where the league kind of dropped the ball just a little bit, in all honesty. But
and Rachel,
still a good thing.
Yeah, and I think you're right, and that was my main point. Is that to me what they're trying to do is say this isn't a U.S. women's national team deal. This is an NWSL deal. So we're going to have players representing. Purely this league. So
yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. All right, Rachel, we got to let you go, unfortunately. But sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I know. I'm sorry. Next time, come on the show when we have more time to talk. But we got to let you go, unfortunately.
I won't put a spin beforehand then.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, spin. Yeah, 2 up front over spin next time. Yeah, we'll make that happen.
Yes, I got it.
Okay, well, it was a pleasure to talk to you
guys,
again,
thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming back on.
We'll do it again soon, okay?
My pleasure. Sounds good. Chat soon.
All right, sounds good. Bye-bye, Rachel. All right,
Bye.
Simon, quite the show, wouldn't you say?
I can't talk. I can't share any new ideas, but we had an awesome interview, obviously, just there with Rachel Wood on the shopfutsal.com call-in line.
Yeah.
Nicole Barnhart earlier in the show. It's still been a fun show, Baxter.
Yeah, we made it work. We had a good time. I have no idea when our show is going to be next week. We have to talk. We'll have to get our agents together and talk about when our show is going to be next week. But stay tuned for that. You can obviously find more information about the show by going to our website, 2upfrontsoccer.com, the number 2. And you can also drop us an email to upfrontsoccer@gmail.com with any comments or questions you might have about the show as well.
Always find us on Facebook, 2Upfront. Please click that like button. And find us on Twitter as well, at 2Upfrontsoccer, using that number 2. He is at Baxter Colburn. I'm at Simon Provan.
Simon Provan, always a pleasure, sir. Let's do it again next week, okay?
Sounds good to me, Baxter.
All right. With all of us here at 2Upfront, with our manager being the one above, we are 2Upfront.